611. This is the chief, joined by Ron Flynn and Sheila Carl. Start with comments, suggestions, petitions by residents and tenants for items not on the agenda. Or not, we'll move on to a pre-recreation department discussion. I think this was sort of initiated by a couple of things. Primary being, sort of looking over the capital expenditure plan. Most of the projects are what, at least in my mind, are sort of department projects, planning, design, construction. So, what kinds of projects? I'm not really sure the workflow works. So, Sean, I was hoping maybe you could just sort of give us some background on what that workflow is. On getting the work done.
Recreation Department and Public Works Departments were separate departments established by the council. That's council's prerogative to but I want to talk a little bit about what the Recreation Department does. My vision for how to coordinate that activity. Think through sticking with things we have done in the past. So, one of the key in these departments, best department one is best known for is our special events, or urban events, special events. These things from soup to nuts and volunteer, according to the volunteers and all of just stealing keys thunder. There's a lot of administrative duties that makes it special event. Parks, that's third party sports, basis, also. Yeah, you want to rent a pavilion or something up at the park, party or celebration, you want to have that something. The direction that that I want to emphasize is just as important as that is parking, especially parking. That's investments in parks, changes to the parks, and you don't want to get good on the road of changing things. He sits in the middle of a elaborate group of sometimes unruly group of third-party interest groups. Committee of council, administration. He sits in the middle of those interactions. Our parks, which coming up with smart investments in our open space. This year, next year, the years to come. So in order to do that, we need to grow and expand our abilities. That's something else that he does, and we also coordinate that activity. Purposely, if he didn't. But he knows really well who's using the parks, how they're used, what those needs are. So I think it's important to have that perspective on change. So my vision is to have Keith be the point of contact for basically anything having to do with parks. He coordinates with public works on specialized maintenance or specialized changes. On his group, we concentrate on maintenance aspects of parks. Keith doesn't have to call down on a weekly basis and say, hey, did you go down and make sure the restrooms were clean? And that's something that's taken care of. But if there's something different we want to explore or something we need to integrate those maintenance activities and also provide us with. That's my vision for recreation department. Steve to talk about this a little bit beforehand and ask others.
I want to be able to answer any questions you may have to the best of my ability. Sean had a good point. I'm integrated from an events perspective, the recreation side of Parks and Recreation on literally every event that takes place in town. From the special event application process, coordinating those efforts with police, fire, ambulance, the internal departments of Public Works, parking, and then you have our in-house events. This weekend's the Restaurant Fest. Coordinating all those efforts to bring a safe, fun, friendly event to the borough of Westchester post-pandemic has kind of been what we've been setting our sights on. When it comes to the park maintenance aspect of things, the Parks and Recreation Department director has always been involved, but more so this year under Sean's guidance, has been more directly involved. Again, I'm not calling Mr. Edwards up and saying, can we get this done? He has faith in me to contact his employees to say, we need to get this done. There's an issue. It's a safety thing. It needs to be taken care of ASAP, or it's something that can wait a couple of days and we'll take care of it. Those items are brought to me by numerous groups. It could be the Friends groups, which now I think we're up to 8. Individual citizens. I mean, I rely heavily on the public's input to tell us what's going on. I can't be at every park, and neither can Public Works at all the time. When it comes to capital improvements, they really come directly through the Parks and Recreation Department. They come through the Recreation Commission. We vet it out, and you'll see in my presentation later, we took a list of like 200 items. That was our wish list that we've been kind of operating off of for years. And we've really shrunk it down into more of a composed, fundamental approach to try and take care of our parks. We have 13 parks, 46 acres of parkland that we need to take care of. Some get a little more love than others. They have their friends groups and they go above and beyond. Sometimes those friends groups expect more attention, but even the little pocket parks need their help too. We have to keep them all safe and viable. From a programming aspect, the Parks and Recreation Department uses our facilities, which is our parks, for a myriad of programming, from tennis clinics and camps over at Hoops to Mommy and Me classes down at Everhart. They might seem minuscule, but we've been providing these programs to the borough for 40 years, well before I was up here. And people continue to sign up and they continue to take advantage of the programs and the events that we offer, and we're going to continue to do so. I don't know if you have any in particular questions about the events, the programs, the parks in general.
I have so many questions. I'd like to set up some separate meetings to go over.
I would love to.
But I'm very busy and but the schedule is up. But I have been in talks with residents about various park ideas, event ideas. You're nonstop. I mean, there are ideas. Ideas are easy. Making them happen is an effort, and an effort that I've seen you accomplish time and time again. So I'm going to be reaching out. We'll be discussing more.
Please. I mean, a lot of what we do are ideas. Like you said, they're ideas. They're everywhere, and they come usually through the Recreation Commission, through my department. We discuss those. We figure out what's viable, what's not, what's within budget, what is not. I've been here for a while, and I'm open to trying new ideas. We've tried numerous things in my time here for the events and in the parks. Some worked out, some didn't, but you're not going to know until you try.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say that the events of anybody involved in the events. So getting those events done, parks themselves, physical spaces, it's a lot of work. So just sort of thinking in the back of my mind, the advantage of all of that. So
It's difficult.
yeah, no, I'm sure, which is why our conversation.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. So, back up to the weekend. this work we've done. We have done it with the money we have to. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 3D.
Good evening, committee. Over the past few months, I've been observing, listening, and assessing the Public Works Department. The proposed 2023 budget, in part, is based on this assessment. It's my opinion that the Public Works Department is operating at a high level of service. The number of complaints from residents and property owners is relatively low. The feedback that I've received suggests that there are not critical major problems that require immediate attention. Public Works is performing its routine work successfully and performing repairs in a timely manner. The supervisors are knowledgeable and conscientious. The union personnel perform their jobs with skill and hard work. The equipment and material resources are adequate to meet our objectives. Now I would like to briefly give you an assessment of our existing infrastructure. The borough's roads are generally in good condition, but always require work from year to year. The restoration of roads can be an expensive endeavor and a significant challenge with limited resources. The borough's beautiful trees contribute to making Westchester a special place to live, work, and enjoy. With so many trees and limited resources, it is important to manage our trees cost effectively. The borough's stormwater management system functions properly most of the time. The borough's brick storm sewers are a concern, which I'll address later. The Goose Creek drainage system is undersized for major storms. The drainage system inside the borough's boundaries is not the largest part of the problem. The sections of Goose Creek downstream from the borough are not sized adequately. I'll address this issue later also. The borough's fleet allows all parts of the borough government to function properly. The borough's vehicles and equipment are operating successfully with minimal downtime, with a few exceptions. Our challenge is to replace vehicles at the right time. Not too soon and not too late when there are multiple expensive repairs. The sanitary sewer system is functioning properly. There are no specific issues that need to be addressed at this time. In terms of the operating budget, we identified the following improvements. Implement a computerized maintenance management system. Currently, the Public Works record keeping is lacking. We need to get to the place where we are documenting all of our work. We are currently in the process of acquiring the software for a computerized maintenance management system. Our IT department should be discussing this endeavor as part of their report. A second improvement would be to rent uniforms for our employees. As discussed previously, uniforms would improve safety and would improve the borough's image in the community. Third improvement would be to enhance our landscaping services for our parks and other properties. Currently, our contractor is just cutting grass. We're planning to add trimming, mulching twice per season, and cleaning up the sidewalks and pathways. The preceding improvements should not result in a big cost increase. It should be noted that this year's inflation will impact Public Works budget to a certain degree. In terms of capital projects, we are proposing to perform repaving of roads using the liquid fuels money that is distributed to us. We are also interested in a small amount of alley paving using general fund money. Regarding fleet, we are proposing the replacement of an 8-ton dump truck, a large truck, along with 2 vehicles. Again, the plan is to replace vehicles cost effectively when considering future repair costs. There are 2 projects that we've identified but are not yet ready to be included in the 2023 budget. The first is a drainage study of the Goose Creek. The study would identify the causes of the flooding and recommend a plan to fix the flooding. The second project is the replacement of brick storm sewers that are currently contributing to sinkholes. We plan on working with DVRPC to find grant funding opportunities for these 2 projects. In closing, I'd like to say that I continue to be excited about working for Westchester Borough and look forward to its future. And I'd be happy to answer any questions and receive your comments.
Yeah, a couple of questions. The software license fee that you have here, is that the software for the work order system? Is that the increase, the 60% increase, or is that some of the line?
I actually cannot answer that. I think the IT department is the one who can answer that.
This is not going to be operating.
$12,500, $20,000 would include the CMMS. CMS. That cost would be about $25,000 for that software.
So will that go in the capital budget, or is that in the operating?
I'd love to answer that. Some money up front.
So the 2022 budget for software license fees is 12.5, the new one's 20, I'm understanding. Well, should be 12 plus 20.
Now, this is something I might be able to answer. It's my understanding that software fees related to GIS are actually going to be shifted to another line item. So that $20,000 will cover the CMMS.
Gotcha. Another question. The liquid fuels work, so that's above and beyond the 40,000 that's in some.
Yes, sir.
I know.
Can I ask a very small question? So, about a tree that's 700 South Africa? That we think.
Oh, they traded with the email, associated with email? Yeah, yes, Thursday.
Okay, so would a project like that be caught if you had a system in place, that the work order system in place?
It would definitely not only help planning the work, but also documenting what we did so that we could go back and we could do reports to explain what we did.
Thank you. That like came together. It's very appropriate that I'm supportive. So thank you for bringing that. Taking care.
Yes.
We have 330 parks. 9 smaller parks. Would it be beneficial that an employee in your department that has no specialists to take care of your parks be able to look at the trees, grass, like an arborist or agronomist or horticulturist, somebody that would be added into your department. This way here, the expertise would actually be in your department. And that person can go around and work with those 13 parks. Make sure that they're up to speed. Because if you look at our urban heritage parks now, being managed by friends, I had a very current discussion last meeting with one of our friends. She paid me to do that, but there's a real need for expertise. I don't know what that expertise costs, but that could be a subcontractor that can do annual or biannual assessments of parks. And then give that to Keith Karowski and say, look, the grass that I'm our parks with long grass that we put in there because of the shade, the stream, Black Horse Stream going through there and eroding everything, give an assessment. That would make, as far as I'm concerned, make their life a lot easier. It keeps work a little bit more efficient. was, you know, he doesn't have to worry about, and that's not his expertise, his expertise is planning events. So, so maybe we can count somebody that has those three different, buildings, you know, horticulturist and arborist and agronomist. I don't know where we find those people.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to me that our investments parks should be listed, you know, the major parks, smaller parks, you know, you guys, your team does an excellent job checking all the equipment. Sure it's safe, making sure the debris is in an annual or biannual assessment, so expert, somebody that understands.
I would say that it's, there's absolutely value what you're talking about. I'm not sure about whether it should be done in-house or using subcontractors. I will tell you that Sean and I were talking about, as far as landscape maintenance, we have interest in bringing in an expert who could help us and give us recommendations on how to improve the turf at these parks. So that is something along the line of what you're talking about. Again, whether it's in-house or using subcontractors, I don't know that I'm ready to offer an opinion on that at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I surprised you with, I think you have an answer. My first guess would be Penn State University, which is a land grant university.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of work with technical stuff.
Right.
And so it's email, it's not like state, say, these are our issues. They have field offices. Maybe free.
Yeah.
You know, who knows, maybe give us a grant for her. I think we've got to start thinking more attention, but the mud is everywhere. You know, a lot of parks.
First.
So that's my thought.
And if I could just add to that, you know, I gave you a lot of words, not numbers tonight. But what I really, I mean, the starting point for me is that Westchester is a special community. So when it comes to parks and trees and things like that, I think we have an interest in improving what we do. It's not to say things are bad. It's just that, you know, I mean, it's what makes it a special place.
And I think this sort of reinforces the point of the number one thing that's on the key list, which is the stuff. Should know RFP has been prepared, but perhaps it could include something to the effect of the things you.
I was kind of thinking, you know, the line item in the budget, there'll be a certain amount of money for landscape management. I think that we're hoping that the basic cutting of the grass and mulching and all that, there will still be money left over, not only for a professional who can help guide us, but also to go out maybe and get some quotes, you know, whether it be aerating the grass or whatever. I'm not that person, but you know, that we would be able to do that as part of this next year's work.
Yeah, our public works group, they're extremely talented.
Yeah.
I mean, our guys, if you have a thought and you throw it out, look at the way we do it.
Yeah.
There are two dollars, actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have a way of figuring out issues. But I think some professional guidance, you know, wouldn't hurt. And you know, this way here we would have, say every other project we do. We have a recipe book on what we need to do. They can do soil samples in each one of the places. You know, we'll hear from wastewater in a couple minutes. And what Sean does over his place, you know, Mike doesn't do at his house. So, I mean, every one's probably do something. Make up the trees.
Understand?
That's it.
But Thomas, one more question I've got. And it's related to this. Under the operating budget of 10,000. So I'm not sure that I saw something. Sure I saw. Budget, but is there a separate operating budget for parks and recreation? I mean, 10,000 can't be.
Right.
6,000.
Yeah, there's 36,000 separate in the Parks and Rec budget for park maintenance.
Thank you.
And whether we do work in-house or by contract, we have the work covered at the parks. And I will say that Keith and I work very well together, and his department and our department work very well together.
So between the 46,000 total, 36 for park and rec, what's the difference in what the actual maintenance is from the public works department?
Well, I would have to look at the details, but again, we have some things that are under contract, such as the cutting of the grass. You know, and during season, that could be $10,000 per month. You know, so I'm sure that there's another line item out there, you know, that would cover the contractor services. And thankfully, it's adequate to do the job right now, so.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Next is the wastewater report.
Good evening. I don't have any street sweeper heating, just get to look at numbers. Real quick in an overview of the department, as you guys know, we have two different treatment plants serving two distinct drainage basins in the borough, Goose Creek and Taylor Run. The treatment processes at each plant are biologically different, but in the end result, both plants meet the stringent discharge parameters mandated by the DEP. Goose Creek, a tributary of the Chester Creek, and Taylor Run, a tributary of the Brandywine River, are classified as recreational, and thus the plant's effluent must be controlled and very clean. Along with the plants in the department is also responsible for the maintenance and operations of 4 pump stations throughout the borough, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The wastewater department employs 16 people as operator trainees, operators, operator techs, lab techs, maintenance, and 2 superintendents. Each plant has its own maintenance shop in which the employees perform, excuse me, the majority of all mechanical, electrical, plumbing, excavating, welding, etc. repairs. Both plant laboratories are fully equipped and fully state accredited by the PA DEP, which we collect, analyze, and report over 25,000 samples each year, each plant. That's the basic overview. You guys have heard that before. For the revenue of our budget, for the 23 budget, the monthly sewer billing revenue is down 6% due to a project which was predicted to start in early 22. Unfortunately, the project was delayed, and hopefully that project will be put in service sometime in early 23, and we can get a boost out of that. With 2 larger projects, building projects starting hopefully in 23, the tap fee line items and the industrial discharge permit and outside hauling accounts should be in line. For the expenses, if you have any other questions for revenue, you'll have to go to Bart and or Sean. For the expenses, I only have a couple of things real quickly. There are 3 accounts that have a higher percentage increase this year and 3 that are decreasing. Real quick, the 3 that are increasing that was brought up in finance was 43825, which is salary overtime. At the beginning of this year, within the first month and a half, we had 1 employee that had to resign or left because of the vaccination requirement, 2 long-term employees, which were 38 and 26 years retired, and a 4th resigned due to pay rate problems. That was in the first 6 weeks, and now we're down 4. We're there 7 days a week, covering weekend shifts. That was a huge thing. Over that, getting physicals, trying to get people hired. We didn't have great things or great showing for applicants. A lot of applicants did not show up for interviews. It's still a constant problem. which constantly led to later and later vacancies and being covered. We're now at full staff. The only reason for overtime would be vacation or holidays, storms, stuff like that. The 45751, the state application fees. As everybody knows, the state likes to jack stuff up. All the DEP, not all, the majority of the DEP applications, fees have doubled. We have to keep up with them. We have to pay them. That's part of that. That's a 41% increase. The big hit will be utilities, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. We combined 3 accounts, Goose Creek Electricity, Taylor Run Electricity, and utilities into one account. So it made the number go up and look higher. The last 2 or 3 years, we've had a phenomenal electric rate, 0.04294, I believe, per kilowatt. And from our sustainability coordinator, that is going to go back higher. Looking back at the rates from 2016 and 17, hopefully it stays right around that. So we went from here to way down here. We go back up to where it was, hopefully. So that would be the 3 largest expenses going up. The 3 largest decreasing accounts would be 42007, our engineering fees down 41%. The engineering fees for any capital project is now in the capital project. So we're building it to, it's all coming out of that and paid out of that, which would decrease this line item. Over the last couple of years, Mike Finley and I have gotten more comfortable without having a department head. So we relied early on with the engineers. Now we're more comfortable, more familiar with everything that we have to do. We have to lean on them. We will use them. They use, excuse me, they're used to fill out our Chapter 94 yearly reports. So that's one expense. They're still used for the capital and any of the IPP, industrial pretreatment program. They're consultants for that. The second one would be 42010, uniforms. We're going down 50%. The wastewater department employees have chosen to withdraw from the uniforms that were supplied last year. We didn't care for them. Half the time, our guys washed our own. They were more comfortable. They were brought back earlier, or they weren't being brought back early enough to keep going through it. So what we brought up to with the borough manager is every year we're just keeping $250 boot allowance per person and a $200 clothing allowance per person. And the borough purchases them, each person 5 t-shirts. If they go out in the public, we're not in the public eye 100% of the time. If they're out in public, they have to have a borough shirt on and look respectable. So that's part of the deal with that. So we're saving the borough $9,000 in that fund. The last is the capital projects, which is down 30% for the 5-year. I'll just hit the capital projects real quick. Goose Creek substation renovation is in phase 2 of 3. In 2021, a switch and transformer were purchased and installed on the north side of the substation. In 2023, the employees and engineers will finalize the design and specs for the south side switch transformer and center section containing the tie breakers and main breakers. The project will be put out to bid for purchasing in 23, and with the lead time of the build for 8 to 10 months. It could be a little longer. That's why we're splitting it into 3 sections. And then the installation phase will be phase 3 in 2024. We're trying a 60-40 split so as to keep the capital budget on an even keel over the 5-year period. The Goose Creek clarifier rebuild, we used to be having a clarifier rebuilt every year. It's not, some of them don't have to be totally rebuilt. The borough owns a clarifier center drive. We'll send that out. They'll inspect it. They might say you only need 1 set of bearings, a new set of gaskets, and cost $1,000. We will take that, bring it back. We'll have a company come in, bring a crane in, pull the old one off, install the new one, then we'll send that other one out to inspect it. So we're just flip-flopping back and forth. We're trying to get that done so we fall back into a rotation, so we're not having any problems with long-term corrosion or anything like that. The tail run digestive gas piping installation, the main burner and safety equipment for the methane burner was purchased in 21. The installation for stainless steel that the contractor had to purchase went through the roof and blew out the budget. So we are going to push that from this year to next year, rebid it at a higher cost, but keeping it into it so we can get it done in 23 and not keep pushing it back farther and farther. The College Avenue wet well relining and sealing. Spalting in the wet well concrete has occurred and needs addressed. The employees and engineers will have a wet well inspected and designed. We found it during our maintenance. Part of the concrete started chipping off, and as we went down to look at it, it became a little more and more. If we catch it soon enough and keep it there, you don't need to build a whole new one. They can come in with the new epoxies. There's 3 or 4 different new things. They can slip line it, they can epoxy coat it, they can, depending on how far back the concrete's spalling. They don't think it's that far back now where it could be cheaper than having to redo the whole thing. And the last project would be Minor Street valve and replacement in at the Everhart Parkway. Last year we had the pipes replaced. This year during maintenance, we found one of the 30-year-old valves. The gates broke off. We had to bypass it, pull the gates out. So now there's no real protection if we have to shut the wet well, or the plant down, or the pump station down, excuse me. So we want to bring a company in to put 2 backflow preventers or back check valves in, keeps water hammers down so we don't have problems. The Don Cube doesn't have problems farther down the road with water hammers in the pipes, and the the slide valves replaced. That way we can offset each pump, get in and work safely on pumps if we have to. And those are our 5 projects. Questions?
Yeah, this is basically part of after fees. We approved the on that line item showing it's down 95,000. Is that an accurate number, or do we know what's going online? It's not.
Assumption on that item is that half of it was having fees from the lease.
Our biggest project, I think it's just 100 and
So you're talking about electrical costs being going back.
Yeah.
Are we buying electricity directly from?
New Constellation, I believe.
I'm gonna ask, have we considered something? Whether it's geothermal or solar or some methane version?
90, I shouldn't say 90, a very high amount of our motors and pumps run on 460 volts, high voltage. Solar's not going to, you can sell solar back, but it's not going to run the plant. Where that is, if they wanted to put solar in somewhere, that's on you guys, up to you guys on how you wanted to do that. You can't take the solar and run our plant on it to cut the cost down. We don't produce methane. Tail run has a small enough amount that it's a small. You can't run the plant on it. It's not going to generate anything. You just get
No.
you get a pretty blue flame in this nighttime sky down there once in a while.
Mr. Chair, I believe, Mr. Williams, working with the, electric source, where we have to provide, see, at a much cheaper rate. He'll be able to tell us, not on tree protection. I think we knew the answer.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have two questions, sorry.
Very good.
So the sodium, bicarbonate,
Sodium bisulfite?
sulfate.
Yeah.
That went down 83%, is that a result?
That was a type of, last year, in 22, the budget was 5,000. A finger hit 3 before 5, so it's only going up $1,000 next year.
Gotcha. Okay. One was that. So the largest expense after sludge.
Correct.
Sort of to Sheila's question, I'm sure you- how much thought are there ways to set digital processes?
Right now, with the cost of, we went through you guys authorized an extension of 1 year for liquid sludge hauling. Depending on the cost of fuel, we'll drive it. In the 5-year plan, there is, I believe in 26 and 27, we have a look at possibly putting centrifuge or a screw press in to turn it from liquid to cake. But then you have to look that you're still have to have a hauling to haul the cake away, which would be less, but you're going to pay a little more in chemicals for polymer to make it thicker to run through it. And it's a little bit, you're going to save a little to get a little. Which way you look at it, how you're going to save it is one way or the other.
Thank you.
But that's usually, to reiterate on that with the sludge, we are an aerobic system, so it depends on the weather, it depends on is college in, is it college out. For our flow, what our BOD is, how much sludge we're generating. At one point of the year, a couple of months, I take out close to 35,000 gallons a day. Right now, we're down to either 13 a day or 18 a day. So we'll just start, it depends how much we have in our thickener tank and digester, and then we can play with it and slide it. So it's not a buffered account, but we try to keep it where, since it's a biological thing that we deal with, sometimes it's friendly and we can come under, and sometimes it's a beast and we have to haul more, and we're right at the number.
Thanks, appreciate their explanation. Well, you can need to language sludge.
Everything needs to move big sludge.
Those guys in his parks and recreation.
Welcome back. I want to start off on a different end. I want to start off on the 5-year cap plan. Obviously, mainly looking forward to next year. I've been talking about it now for almost 2 years, is the borough's recreation/master park plan. I'm using the recreation plan. That's what we have in our books and our code right now. That's the term we're using. So they're really interchangeable. We don't have, or what we have is lacking. It was first created in 1992. There was an update in 2014 that included the recreation fee in lieu of, which I'll get to in a second. We need to do this. As Mr. Flynn mentioned earlier, having a recipe book for what you want to do moving forward. Doing this next year guides us. It's that recipe book for the next 8 to 10 years. We're going to have professionals that do this for a living. Tell us what we need to do, where we're lacking, have focus groups, have meetings, talk with the friends groups. With that all being said, there's a large tract of property down the street that's going to be developed. And if that's developed, then it'll provide the correct recreational space, or if they choose to pay the recreation fee in lieu of, we're in line to get a substantial amount of money that can only be spent for open space, parks, and recreation. That can help pay for this plan. That can help pay for a lot of different projects and a lot of different parks in and around that neighborhood. So that's my big one for next year. we took, as I mentioned earlier, the Recreation Commission and I took literally 6 months to take this massive list of park projects that we've gotten from all over the place over the last couple of years and dwindle it down to what you see now. With some help from Will Williams, we kind of put it into a more calculated format that next year that recreation plan would be our focus. And then there's some other smaller park projects, similar to what we did this year, improving some different fall zones and different parks that need them, that be taking place as well. But just keeping in mind that if things go according to plan and that property is developed, that the developer needs to either provide recreational space, which is great, or provide us with 80 cents per square foot for a 550,000 square foot place, which comes to a nice chunk of change. You can see as we move out, that's our plan as the Rec Commission and the Rec Department. This recreation plan would change those, could possibly change those projects from year to year or moving out. That's what it's all about. It's literally putting together the people that are, want to make the change, can help facilitate the change, tell us where we can get the monies, use recreation fee in lieu of. The Friends groups can pitch in money. We have an overarching Friends of Westchester Parks and Recreation that kind of helps, is supposed to be helping to oversee the parks that don't have individual Friends groups. They have a nice little bank of their own. They could put in money. We could go after a grant for this plan. Again, part of this process will be using consulting fees from the operating budget next year to hire someone to help us put together the RFP to go after this plan. It is a long plan. It's going to take 6 to 9 months to complete. Like I said before, I've spoken to 3 different organizations that do this all the time. And without me giving them specifics, they kind of gave me 75 to 100,000. 75, you're getting maybe C, B level work, and 100,000, you're getting A level work. But that'll be part of the processes. That's one of the, I can't stress this enough. I've been hyping on it for 2 years. I think this is what we need to get our parks together. It'll help with the infighting and the bickering amongst the Friends groups to see who gets what and when. It'll be laid out. You're always going to have issues with a tree branch falling and smashing a tree or a sinkhole or whatever, something along those lines. But this will help guide us in what we need to do. And we really can't use those recreation fee in lieu of monies unless we have a new recreation plan in place to guide us. So that's kind of where I stand on my the 5-year capital, especially for next year. I apologize, my Surface shut down on me. Bill, could you go to my email I sent you earlier? So it's open. I'll just look over there. Next slide, please. Keep going. I don't know why it came up like this, but just keep going. I don't know why it came up like this. I'm not a PowerPoint master. Try and get it on my screen as well. Okay, we'll start off, and I don't want to read them verbatim. I'll just touch on some of the key issues. Keep going, Bill. There's a couple more at the top of that, I believe. There we go. We'll go there. I'll start talking. As we mentioned earlier, part of the responsibilities that Sean has bestowed upon the Parks and Rec Director is the better coordination and maintenance of our parks. As I mentioned earlier, we have 46 acres of parks, 13 parks, 12 if you consider John O'Green phase 1 and phase 2, 1 park. I consider them 2, so I can say we have 13. But working with Public Works, as Don Edwards mentioned earlier, in his short time here, we've had a very good working relationship in getting these issues taken care of. Again, we can only do what we can with the staff we have and the budget provided. We have upped those numbers from last year, 26,000 in Parks and Recreation to 36,000. The 2 biggest issues, or the 2 biggest costs, are our EWF, which is our engineered wood fiber, which is the fall zones in the parks that don't have poured in place, and mutt mitts. It's one of Sean's favorite topics is mutt mitts. Throw money away, but we have to.
I had no idea. I thought you were talking about muffins.
No, mutt mitts, yes. Those are the 2 biggest costs. just to give you an idea, when this committee approved the park fall zone upgrades back in the spring, it was $2,300 and change for 100 cubic yards of engineered wood fiber. I'm trying to order 100 more yards and have been. It's now $25.98 for that same 100 yards. So it almost went up $300 in a couple months. Same company, same equipment, same stuff. Everything's the same. It just went up in price. So that's the two biggest costs when it comes to the park maintenance line items for the parks. That and mutt mitts. Mutt mitts, while we did find a creative way of using ones that were environmentally friendly and fit our own code, they're going up as well. It's just the cost of doing business. The coordination and use of space, I mentioned earlier, working with several different park groups. We have Greenfield Park, which has 9 different organizations, as you Farley Field, the adult baseball teams. They have fall ball now. You're coordinating these efforts with the different groups from around the borough that want to use our facilities, and someone's got to oversee them and take care of them. The community relations, we mentioned earlier, I've worked, not myself, the director has worked with literally everyone in town, from special event applications to just collaborations to focus groups, working with the university. There's a number of university student athletes that'll be helping us out this weekend. The event management, as we mentioned earlier, the department's really known for the events we plan and organize, but again, it doesn't just stop there. We plan a bunch of we help facilitate a lot of other events that take place in the borough, from 5Ks to block parties. John O'Brien from the bid will be up here tomorrow, public safety, talking about that he's having that we've discussed, and I've kind of given my 2 bits because it's literally similar to what a Swinging Summer Thursday was, just a little bit of a different layout. But there you go, Bill. I think it's going to do the same thing. Keep going, man. You might as well just click. Oh, nice. Just to give you an idea of some of the events that will be taking place next year and the costs associated with them are in the line item budget. Our standards, Turkstead Music Festival, Restaurant Festival. This past year, we collaborated with the police department and the Parks and Rec department for the Night Out Against Crime / Touch a Truck event. I had never been to that before. Supposedly it was the best ever attended, combining the 2 events. Why didn't we do it sooner? I don't know, but we're going to be doing it again next year. It really went over very well. The annual Halloween parade is coming back this year. We'll be happening again next year, hopefully. And then ending out the year will be our 3rd annual Santa at the Square, which I created last year for the first time and was a hit. We had about 1,000 people over at Marshall Square Park for a really cold but fun evening of getting pictures with Santa. This is the next slide. It's just a continuation of the camps and programs that we run. There can be more. There's a lot more that we have done in the past. A lot of folks that I'd like to continue working with and reach back and reestablish those relationships. But everything you see here is something we did this past year. And then the last page is the one you're going to love seeing. In order to do this, the Parks and Rec department needs staff. The director has been doing this job for 2.5 years as a solo. It's trying. I can't do everything that is required and get it done properly. The director should be focusing on the maintenance, the capital issues, the master plan, taking care of the high level long-term goals, where the assistant director would be more of the day-to-day operations, the park rentals, the park usages, just again, the day-to-day operations of the park. And in my tenure here, we've had a summer intern, if I'm not mistaken, I believe every year from 2007 to 2019, there may have been 1 year we didn't, to provide a local Westchester Immaculata, a local college student, real life, a senior level college student, the opportunity to get real life experience and also provide a helping hand in the busiest time of the year it's extremely beneficial to them, and it's helped us out significantly. When we had the summer camps as they were previously, we relied on those seasonal staff to help out at the event. As I mentioned, I believe previously, the Restaurant Festival on Sunday, I've got about 45, 50 volunteers, student athletes from Westchester University and Immaculata College and Westchester Henderson all coming out to help. And that's fantastic. That's great. But being the director, being the only person there that knows what's actually going on, you tend to spend more of your time explaining things as opposed to getting them done. And to at least have one person two of the interns there to help alleviate that load would be beneficial, extremely beneficial. That's just if you have any questions. If you want to go to the line item budget, I'm happy to do so. Just to let you, the staffing ask is not in the current line item budget, but will be added. Or will be requested to be added. Thank you.
Thank you. Final last item. The storm protection.
Good evening, Will Williams, Sustainability Director. Happy to talk about energy with you offline. So 2023 will be the 7th year of the storm protection fee, and I stepped in and started working on this in 2020. It's hard to believe it'll be the 4th year that I've been working on it. Time has really flown. There's no changes operationally, staffing, programmatically. Our operational goals are really the same. Sustain good collections on the SPF while providing excellent customer service. It's my goal. People pick up the phone and call the government. They're generally not in a great mood. My personal goal with every phone call or email is to have everyone be pleasantly surprised at the level of customer service they get. Don't always get there, but more often than not. We want to do impactful stormwater projects with the money that we collect, and we want to supplement it with grant funding wherever possible. And what I'm really excited about is the addition of Nick on our staff and Don Edwards coming on board. We're working to map our assets, better understand the maintenance requirements for all of our assets, create a work order system so that those maintenance requirements can be taken care of in an organized fashion, and really move towards away from being reactive with our maintenance and capital replacement projects and be proactive. Great example of that is collapsing brick sewers. We get surprised by a few every summer. We're trying to figure out where they all are and assess the condition of all of them so we can proactively replace them. It's much cheaper to do that rather than have the road collapse and be on the hook for emergency repairs. So with that, I'll very briefly go through a budget. This is really capital and operating. First, we always start with revenue. Here's revenue for the last 6 years, including this year through last month. We're projecting about 95% collection rate minus one enormous presence in the borough, who I do not need to name, but suffice to say, everyone who's not the university is pretty much paying their bill. Here's a snapshot again of the entire budget. It's very simple. Basically, the blue categories are all the things that we actually like fun stormwater related things we get to do with the stream protection fee. The other things are staff administrative costs, basically the cost of having the program. I'm exceptionally proud of, and the staffing I'll mention, that's not only the staff to operate the stream protection fee, the revenue side, but it's also really to have on-staff resource for stormwater issues to work with our engineer and public works. I did a favor for a friend of mine who works for an engineering firm and spoke to the city of Honolulu, which put a program in place similar to ours. Their administrative expenses are 55% of their revenue. Ours are about 5.5%. So we're doing, 10 times better than the city of Honolulu. They didn't offer me a job, whereas if they did, I probably wouldn't be here right now. Here's a little more detail on some of the bigger things. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's a little more explanation about professional fees, staff, maintenance, some of the bigger line items. Suffice to say, maintenance is maintaining our existing MS4 system, and the capital is adding new infrastructure. Capital projects fall into 3 buckets. We want to close out old projects, things that are underway now. We want to execute new projects and design future projects. I'd really like to get on the cadence with our projects where we're designing and preparing for bid in year 1, bidding January, breaking ground in the spring, finishing work in the summer, landscaping in the fall, closing out our projects in, the actual construction phase in 1 calendar year. I think that would help tremendously from a budget and organization perspective. Obviously, large projects, we're not going to be able to do that. Over here on the right, I just have a reminder for everyone. good SPF investments. They should mitigate flooding, retain, infiltrate stormwater, improve that water quality, earn credit towards our DEP mandates for both of our stream sheds, and replace infrastructure or add additional infrastructure. Good project locations upstream of flooding, large drainage areas, borough properties that is always simpler, or right away on low stress streets where there's not a lot of traffic or street parking, things like that. With that criteria in mind, here's the 5-year capital plan. Not going to go through this, but I'll just point out, I've separated this into our 2 stream sheds and then our a third bucket, which is not necessarily watershed specific. It's more along the lines of that proactive maintenance and capital replacement I was talking about. There's a line item there for pipe relining proactively once it gives us a year to get our act together and really attack that program in a new way. The most important thing of the 5-year capital plan, it establishes a sustainable rate of spending for capital over the 5 years. And if you're interested in next year's project, in the back of this presentation is a quick slide on each project that we're addressing next year.
Because the residential bed debt. First one go there, but the residential bed debt, how would the,
Sorry, what?
the residential bed debt, people not paying
Yeah.
as residents? Do we have a lot of delinquent people?
No, it's about 5 or 6% of properties at this point. I don't have an exact number for what's outstanding with Portnoy, but yeah, suffice to say 95, 94% of people are in good standing with the borough on the sewer protection fee. A lot of our problems remain landlords.
Thank you very much. On item 4, is approved selling vehicles on bid. Don, is that for you, or do we want to just do attachments?
Yeah, there are 2 vehicles for sale, both for sale. Process. One details about how they think.
This will take one sentence. It's based on age and mileage risk.
Thank you. Want any questions? So 3. 4B, approve the August 22 meetings. Approved. Any other business? Seeing none, we will adjourn the meeting at 7:15.